In the heart of the galaxy, where stars gleamed like ancient eyes watching from the dark, the grand chamber of the galactic Concordium gathered once again under its towering crystal dome, a place older than many civilizations themselves. Here, hundreds of alien representatives, each more bizarre and brilliant than the last, floated, stood, or slithered in their designated seats, speaking in hushed tones about a planet that had long remained off their radar. Earth, a blue and green sphere spinning quietly in a lesser arm of the Milky Way, teeming with unpredictable life and, most notably, humans. They were new, chaotic, violent, and yet alarmingly quick to adapt, and after the events of recent probes and secret observations, the Concordium Council was spooked. Humans had discovered nuclear energy before interstellar travel, had fought world wars yet landed on their moon within a generation, had built intelligent machines while still tearing each other apart for land and belief. And the vote had been called swiftly, framed as a necessity for peace. Annex Earth, enslave the humans, repurpose them as laborers before they become a threat to galactic balance. Few objected, and when the great Chancellor Arental's voice boomed through the chamber, echoing in every tongue at once, declaring Earth officially annexed under Directive 7, the gavel of decree struck down like thunder, sealing humanity's fate without their knowledge. Soon after, across Earth's sky, the stars shifted, not from natural motion, but because Concordium enforcement ships entered orbit, black and silver behemoths that blotted out constellations and sent ripples through global communication systems, darkening satellites and silencing military radars. And when the ships activated their worldwide translator systems, a single chilling message rang out in every human language. You have been peacefully annexed by the Galactic Concordium. Surrender your planetary authority and prepare for integration. At first, the world froze, unsure if it was a hoax, a hack, or mass hysteria. But when New York's skyline was scanned by invisible beams, when Tokyo's power grid blinked out in a heartbeat, when a Concordium lander descended into the Sahara and erased a military drone with a single pulse, humanity understood. The threat was real. Governments scrambled, chaos erupted. But amid the noise, old shadows stirred, and in the Rocky Mountains, deep beneath a forgotten military base, Project Bastion awoke. A relic from an era when Earth feared alien invasions as science fiction, now reactivated by a coalition of retired generals, rogue scientists, and quiet geniuses who had never stopped believing this day would come. The project's goal was never to surrender. It was to resist, to adapt, to retaliate, using whatever technology, weaponry, and sheer stubborn will Earth had left. Drones were scrambled, secret satellites reactivated, communication bunkers lit, up with urgent codes, and as Concordium ships moved to disable Earth's defense systems, they encountered something unexpected. Resistance, not coordinated military strength, but irregular, aggressive defiance from civilians, hackers, rogue pilots, and even children who jammed frequencies or flooded systems with noise, slowing the invasion's digital arm. Concordium generals were perplexed. This species was supposed to be primitive, frightened, scattered. Yet the more they pushed, the more violent the resistance became, unpredictable and messy. And when the first Concordium ground patrol was ambushed in the forests of northern Canada, its plasma armor disabled by electromagnetic mines crafted from scrap metal and microwave parts, Earth's message to the galaxy was clear. We are not ready to kneel. In a hidden room lined with old servers and glowing monitors, Commander Raina Cole, once a Space Force dropout, now the leader of the last real Earth defense unit, watched enemy positions on a flickering screen and whispered into her headset, "If they want this planet, they'll have to bleed for it." And across the planet, in basements, bunkers, deserts, and seas, humanity began to move, not just to survive, but to fight back. The Concordium believed the humans would break quickly, that the show of power would crush their will and bring silence, but they were wrong, fatally wrong. Days after the official annexation, their ships began facing strange problems. Comms blackouts, unexplained energy spikes, and missing patrols. And what started as minor confusion soon turned into chaos as small, hidden human groups launched attacks that were too fast, too clever, and too destructive for the Concordium to predict, using tricks no advanced sensor arrays could catch. Homemade drones flew low through ruined cities, carrying explosives crafted From chemicals and tech scraps, EMP bursts fried delicate alien equipment, and entire squads vanished in mountain passes, ambushed by enemies who struck and disappeared like ghosts. The aliens had never fought a species like this, one that adapted with terrifying speed, turning whatever they could find into a weapon. And even as Earth's major cities suffered under lockdown and orbital control, the countryside and underground networks came alive with resistance, spreading messages, codes, and battle plans through repurposed radio waves and blinking satellite hacks, all while the humans learned. Every encounter, every skirmish taught them more about their enemy. And soon, engineers in bunkers were reverse engineering alien tech, linking Concordium weapon systems with human processors, creating hybrid machines that pulsed with unpredictable power. The aliens called Earth a labor world, but now it felt more like a battlefield of nightmares. And deep within one occupied zone near what used to be southern France, a Concordium envoy named Virelkan was captured. Not killed, not tortured, but taken alive by humans who wanted answers as much as they wanted freedom. Virelkan, a diplomat bred for reason and protocol, expected pain, but what he received instead shocked him more. Questions, hundreds of them. What was the Concordium? Why had they voted to enslave Earth? What did they fear so much about humans that they couldn't even offer them a chance? His answers came slowly at first, filtered through fear, but as the humans showed him their world, their ruined cities, their buried hopes, their stubborn pride, something inside Virelkan shifted. He had seen records of violent wars, of Earth's madness, but never its heart, never its art, its laughter in the dark, its people who risked their lives just to hide a child or sabotage a scanner. And when Raina Cole herself visited the holding room and showed Virelkan the stolen vote footage, the moment the Concordium voted without Earth's voice, he understood the fury behind this planet's eyes. They weren't fighting because they loved war, but because they had been denied the right to choose. And that, Virelkan realized, was something no species took lightly, not even humans. Meanwhile, across the globe, Earth's retaliation grew bolder. Strike teams snuck aboard Concordium harvesters, disabling them from inside and crashing them into ocean trenches, while sky-hacked Concordium drones were turned back against their masters. One such drone, carrying a hacked navigation system, flew straight into the heart of a command frigate above the Atlantic, destroying the ship and broadcasting the human resistance symbol in its final burst, a clenched fist made of stars. In Concordium command circles, panic set in, not because of the damage, but because of what it meant. The humans were learning faster than expected, adapting to technology thousands of years ahead of theirs, and turning that knowledge into weapons of terror and strategy. Leaders called for more ships, more troops, but the damage was done. Fear had set in, and Virelkan's reports, now altered with sympathy, warned them that Earth could not be tamed by force, only provoked. Back on the ground, Raina's team completed a massive data heist, tapping into a Concordium relay station in orbit and downloading critical codes and blueprints, giving Earth's engineers access to faster propulsion systems, field weapons, and encryption, gifts paid for in blood, but priceless in the coming days. The resistance began to unify under the signal Bastion Online, a message sent through low-frequency networks to all surviving resistance cells, and slowly, the scattered warriors began to act as one, setting the stage for something greater, a coordinated counterattack. In orbit, Concordium commanders tried to regroup, but their own supply lines were under attack by unknown vessels. Human repurposed mining ships armed with stolen plasma cannons, silent and deadly in the void, and, for the first time, the aliens faced a real possibility. Failure. The humans had done the impossible, not just survive, but turn the invasion into a proving ground. And as Virelkan stood on the edge of a ruined skyscraper in what was once Paris, watching human children play between armored sentries and smoking ruins, he whispered to himself a phrase he never thought he would speak. They will never bow. And the stars above seemed to burn brighter, as if the galaxy itself was beginning to listen. The galaxy watched in silence as reports from Earth grew. Stranger each day, Concordium fleets being forced to retreat, patrols disappearing in once-controlled zones, and human broadcasts flooding unprotected channels with messages of defiance and hope, causing unrest across a dozen alien worlds where species began to question everything they were told. On Earth, resistance was no longer scattered. It was becoming a storm, and at its center stood Commander Reyna Cole, who had grown from a soldier in hiding to a symbol of human strength, leading operations from a mobile command center buried deep within the Andes, where engineers, scientists, and fighters worked side by side, turning Concordium blueprints into tools of war and survival. Human factories, once dark, roared back to life using stolen power cores, and ships once meant for mining now carried plasma lances and stealth drives, capable of striking targets across the solar system, while rebels on Mars and Earth's moon joined the fight. Long-forgotten colonies that had watched helplessly when Earth was taken, now rising with vengeance, hacking Concordium systems and launching their own raids. Varel, still among the humans but no longer a prisoner, helped translate Concordium protocols, revealing hidden weaknesses and rallying quiet sympathizers within the enemy's ranks. And through his data, humanity learned that the vote against Earth had not been universal. Many member species of the Concordium had been misled, threatened, or silenced, and when humans leaked this truth across encrypted galactic networks, protests broke out on alien planets, forcing the Concordium to pull back its spies and redirect its focus. In orbit, 2 Concordium supply ships vanished near Saturn's rings, only to be found drifting days later, emptied of cargo and crew, their hulls marked with a human resistance symbol and a simple message, "We do not kneel," which spread like wildfire, turning into a chant repeated in secret by workers and slaves across conquered worlds. With every victory, Earth gained not only ground but allies. Small alien vessels began arriving near Jupiter's moons, carrying refugees, smugglers, and even defectors who wanted to fight alongside humans, and for the first time, Earth was no longer alone. A secret meeting was held on Europa, led by Reyna and attended by Varel and leaders from 4 alien species, once part of the Concordium, each one tired of control, each one willing to join Earth's cause if given protection. And so the Free Coalition was born, a name that carried promise and danger, especially when it reached the ears of High Chancellor Arental, who had led the vote against Earth and now faced rebellion not just from one world, but from within his empire. In response, he ordered the blockade of Earth reinforced, bringing in the 7th Armada, the most feared fleet in Concordium history. But before they could arrive, the humans struck first. Using a captured Concordium beacon, they tricked the fleet into entering an ambush zone between Mars and Earth's orbit, where hidden mines and kinetic launchers fired from asteroid fields tore through their ranks, leaving over half the fleet crippled within minutes. The rest tried to escape but found their navigation systems corrupted by a virus written by a 17-year-old hacker from New Delhi, who had spent weeks inside an abandoned server farm decoding alien signal patterns. And the victory, though costly, was a turning point, one that told the galaxy Earth was not just surviving, it was winning. Back on the ground, children were learning alien languages, soldiers trained with hybrid weapons, and factories produced armor designed for multi-species use, ready to arm new allies who arrived daily. Varel, standing beside Reyna as they watched the coalition's first fleet come together, a patchwork of ships, colors, and voices, felt a strange pride rise in his chest, knowing he had once supported the very system now falling apart. Still, the danger was far from over, as the Concordium, desperate to crush the uprising, began targeting civilian populations with precision strikes, hoping to break morale, but instead, they fueled the fire further, turning survivors into fighters, and pushing even neutral species towards sympathy with Earth. And when a massive explosion in Earth's orbit took down a Concordium dreadnought, filmed live and sent across thousands of communication streams, the chant grew louder on planets that had never heard of Earth just months ago. Freedom is a human word now, they said, whispered in shadows and spoken in crowds. And though the stars above still held threats and war loomed greater than ever, the rising tide of humanity, driven by pain, united by choice, and led by those who refused to be broken, was now impossible to ignore. Above Earth, the sky was no longer peaceful. It was filled with the glow of enemy ships, the burn of engines, and the distant flicker of explosions as war spread into the cold silence of space. And the humans, once trapped below, now fought in the void they had barely begun to explore. The Coalition's fleet, made of human vessels patched together with alien parts, refugee ships converted into warships, and stolen Concordium cruisers, drifted in formation beyond the moon, hidden by signal scramblers and asteroid fields, waiting for the right moment to strike. And in the center of it all, Reyna Cole stood aboard the Dauntless, a command carrier forged from the wreckage of 3 different Concordium frigates, now humming with Earth-born life, its halls filled, with voices speaking many tongues but sharing one cause. The enemy was bringing in a superweapon, a war-forged juggernaut known only as the Ascendant Flame, a massive battleship capable of burning entire cities from orbit, and the Concordium planned to use it as the final blow to Earth's rebellion, showing, not just the humans, but the entire galaxy, that resistance was hopeless. Reyna and her commanders knew they had one chance, to strike the ship before it reached Earth's orbit, and to do so without warning, deep in space where no help would come and no retreat was possible. The plan was risky, almost mad, and yet every soldier and pilot in the Coalition knew it had to be done, or everything they had fought for would be lost. As the fleet launched, engines burning cold and quiet to avoid detection, a silence filled the ships, not fear but focus, as each crew prepared for the fire ahead, and among them flew fighters, piloted by Earth's best, old aces, young daredevils, even criminals given a second chance if they agreed to fly for the cause. Verilkhan, now fully trusted, sat in a command chair aboard the Dauntless, feeding tactical data and old Concordium codes to the human systems, guiding them through blind spots and weak points he once helped design. And in that moment, he knew he was no longer just an observer. He was one of them. When the Ascendant Flame came into view near Neptune, it was like watching a floating mountain of death, its body glowing red from inner reactors, its hull lined with weapon ports and shield arrays that could melt through steel in seconds. But it had one weakness. Its power core could be overloaded if struck in sequence from 3 angles, a near impossible task made harder by the endless swarm of fighter drones and escort ships surrounding it. The first wave of the Coalition fleet moved in fast, drawing fire, sacrificing speed for distraction, and though many were lost, their charge allowed Reyna's strike group to break through, slipping close enough to release their payloads, EMP. Bombs and plasma torpedoes that cracked through shields and carved through armor. The battle turned wild, with debris flying in all directions, engines bursting, and ships vanishing in clouds of fire. And in the chaos, Earth's pilots did the unthinkable. One group flew into the ship's side vents, guiding explosives by hand before ejecting at the last second, setting off a chain reaction that shook the Ascendant's flank. At the same time, 2 stolen Concordium frigates, rigged with autopiloted overrides, rammed the ship's upper decks, causing secondary explosions that forced the Flame's command systems offline. But it wasn't enough. The core remained untouched, and time was running out as the ship's main cannon charged, preparing to fire on Earth's surface with enough energy to level continents. In that final moment, a lone ship broke formation, a small, fast craft with a stolen drive coil, piloted by Juno Kai, once a racing pilot on Earth, now the Coalition's most daring flyer, and she dove toward the Flame at full speed, weaving through fire, pushing her ship past its limit as Reyna's voice filled her comms, giving the exact coordinates of the core strike. Juno's ship shook, caught in gravity pulses and energy waves, but she didn't stop, locking her torpedoes manually and firing them just before her ship exploded in the final burst of heat and light. Seconds later, the Ascendant Flame cracked from within, its glowing red heart blinking once, then going dark as a chain reaction tore through its engines and tore the ship apart in a thunderous silence felt across the system. Cheers erupted on every Coalition ship, relief and sorrow mixing as they watched the wreckage drift into the black. And though they had won the battle, they had lost many, brave fighters, engineers, and the fearless Juno, whose name would now live in every whisper of freedom across the stars. Reyna, standing in the command deck, gave no speech, only a single salute to the void where the Flame once burned, and turned her eyes toward Earth, knowing that this was not the end, but a message to the Concordium. Humanity was no longer a target. They were a force, and the fire in the void now burned for them. The ruins of the Ascendant Flame still floated near Neptune's orbit, a broken monument to the stubbornness of Earth, and across the galaxy, its destruction sent shockwaves, not just through the Concordium, but through every world that had doubted humanity's will to fight, and now something new stirred. Fear in the hearts of those who had once voted to enslave Earth because the humans had not only survived, they had learned, adapted, and struck with fire. High Chancellor Arental watched the reports from his sky palace above the Concordium's homeworld, his face pale under shifting lights, his advisors silent as message after message came in. Military defeats, system losses, internal rebellions, and strange broadcasts in hundreds of languages saying the same thing. They kneel or we rise, and no one could stop it now. In secret, Reyna Cole and Varelkan had been building something even more dangerous than warships. A movement of truth, a wave of leaked information, evidence of the rigged vote, of enslaved planets, and the Concordium's centuries of silent control, now released across secure quantum channels and smuggled data drives to distant worlds. And each time a leader saw what the Concordium had done to Earth, they questioned whether they were next. Slowly, systems began leaving the Concordium, cutting ties, joining the Free Coalition, and swearing loyalty not to Earth, but to the right to choose. And as this political collapse began to spread, Reyna prepared her final play, not a strike. From orbit, not a fleet battle, but a direct landing on the Concordium capital itself. Most believed it was suicide, but Reyna knew the truth. If they struck hard and fast with the right message, they wouldn't need to win a war, only force the ones who once voted to enslave Earth to see who they had provoked. The mission was codenamed Iron Echo, and it began with a stealth drop, a small fleet disguised as refugees, slipping past border patrols thanks to hacked ID signals and help from Concordium defectors who no longer believed in the system. When they landed, Reyna, Varelkan, and a strike team of elite fighters stormed the Hall of Dominion, the place where the vote to enslave Earth had once been cast with no human voice in the room, and though resistance was fierce, the humans had planned every step, every corridor, every entrance point, and moved with precision that confused even the best-trained guards. Within an hour, the team breached the central chamber, where the Council of 300 stood frozen in disbelief, many of them never expecting to see humans alive, let alone armed and in control. Reyna didn't make threats, she didn't fire a shot, she simply activated a broadcast device and played the original vote recording, letting every council member hear their own words, their own laughter, their own silence as Earth was condemned. And then she stepped forward, unarmed, and said 5 words that would be heard across the stars. "Now you kneel to us." Silence followed, broken only by the sound of Varelkan translating into 10 different dialects. And slowly, one by one, council members stood, their faces heavy with shame, and then dropped to their knees, not because of fear, but because of the truth they had ignored, because they saw that Earth had earned its place not through strength, but through unshakable will. Broadcasts of the moment were spread in real time by the Free Coalition, sent to every colony, every world, every species that had been watching from the shadows, and the message was clear. The Concordium had fallen, not by fire, but by reckoning. Reyna and her team left the chamber without bloodshed, walking back through streets now filled with whispers, with people watching from windows, wondering what would come next. And as they rose back into orbit, escorted by a fleet that now flew, Free Coalition flags, the galaxy changed. Leaders who once ignored Earth now sent envoys, asking to join, to learn, to build new paths together. And Reyna, never seeking power, handed the future to a new council, one where every species would vote, including humanity, and no one would ever be silenced again. On Earth, bells rang across cities being rebuilt, old ruins turned into monuments, and children learned the names of those who stood when others bowed. In space, new ships were forged, not for war, but for peacekeeping, exploration, and unity. And the name of Earth no longer brought memories of defeat, but of courage, of rebellion, of freedom earned in fire. And far above, where stars burned quiet and cold, the Concordium's old banner was taken down, replaced with a simple symbol, a circle of open hands, born from the day they knelt. The stars, once distant and unreachable to most on Earth, now glowed with meaning as the name of humanity spread across every system like wildfire, not as conquerors, but as survivors, builders, and leaders of a new age. And though the Concordium had fallen, its pieces still drifted through space, dangerous and bitter, filled with those who refused to accept the change, and Reyna Cole knew the fight wasn't over, only different. Now came the true test, governing without oppressing, uniting without controlling, and showing the galaxy that humanity's rise was not a moment of revenge but a dawn of responsibility. The new Council of Free Worlds, formed in the ashes of the Concordium, held its first summit on Earth, not in a grand palace, but in a restored university hall in Geneva, where every delegate sat at the same level, no species above another. And as Reyna walked into the chamber, now just an honored guest, not a commander, she looked out at beings from every corner of the galaxy, some tall and scaled, others small and glowing, all watching her with respect earned through fire and truth. Verelkan stood by her side, no longer an exile but a bridge between worlds, and he opened the summit with words once forbidden, "Let no voice be silenced," and with that, the age of humanity ascendant truly began. Across the stars, human-built, ships traveled with missions of peace and trade, helping rebuild war-torn planets, offering technology to those who had been held back for generations, and teaching others what Earth had learned the hard way, that unity must be chosen, not forced. But not everyone was ready for this future, and in the darkness beyond known space, old Concordium warlords began gathering, hoarding stolen tech, and planning to strike back, whispering that Earth had humiliated them, that their time would come again. And when an outpost near the edge of the Trossen Rift was found destroyed, its people taken, Reyna was called back into action, not as a general, but as a protector of the peace she helped create. She took the helm of a new ship, the Liberty's Reach, built not just for battle, but for diplomacy, defense, and discovery, and with her crew, human and alien alike, she chased the signals through debris fields and dead systems until they found the truth, a rogue fleet led by former Concordium admirals, building a new weapon, larger than the ascendant flame, hidden within a collapsing star's gravitational shadow. It was called the Silence, and its purpose was clear, to erase Earth from the galaxy and take back control through fear once more. Reyna knew they had to stop it before it was completed, but the Free Council hesitated, afraid of starting another war, divided by species with wounds not yet healed. So Reyna made a choice. She would go without orders, without backing, just as she had in the beginning, and her crew followed without question, because they believed not in Earth alone, but in what it stood for. As the Liberty's Reach moved into the heart of the enemy zone, dodging ancient minefields and storms of radiation, tension grew, and the closer they got to the Silence, the more signs they saw. Ships stripped for parts, planets scorched in, secret tests and signals intercepted of prisoners crying out for help. They launched their strike in the dark of a dying star, using blackout drives and mirror shields, slipping past patrols until they reached the weapon's core, where thousands of forced laborers, many from species once loyal to the Concordium, were building under threat of death. Reyna gave them a choice: fight with us or stay enslaved. And to her surprise, they rose in revolt within moments, turning their tools against guards, seizing control from within as the Liberty's Reach disabled the outer defenses. The Silence never fired a single shot. It was dismantled from the inside, a symbol of what the galaxy had become, no longer ruled by fear, but by shared strength. When the battle ended, Reyna called the Free Council with one message: peace must be protected, or it will always be taken. And this time, they listened. The rogue admirals were tried not in vengeance, but in truth, judged by a council of species they had once ruled, and the weapon's wreckage was turned into a monument near Earth's orbit, where all could see the cost of silence. Years passed, and humanity did not fade back into its old place. They built stations in deep space, helped create shared academies of science and diplomacy, and worked beside their allies to make sure no planet would be alone again. Reyna retired at last, not in glory, but in peace, walking through the streets of a new Earth, filled with life, with alien shops next to human homes, and children of many species laughing together under the sky she once fought to protect. The deep stars still burned above, vast and unknown, but they no longer looked like prison bars. They looked like home, and as the sun rose over a united world, one message remained carved into stone at the base of the old Concordium chamber. Here stood those who once knelt and rose again to lead the stars,